Braxcast time once again, guys. This is the 51st episode of the Braxcast, and Rippaverse is at Megacon. This is a pretty exciting time, of course, when the Rippaverse shows up at a con. They have special sales on stuff. You see special editions of the Rippazines 1 and 2, some nice CGCs. Of course, we've got Yaira number 110 here, a signed copy of the first edition or the first collection of the Dokumon cards. And of course, I believe Dean Kane was there as well, and he signed a copy of Horseman, and that is the first signed copy of Horseman. I believe that was the C cover which he signed, if I'm getting everything correctly. So it's a pretty exciting time if you're there at Megacon. I'm filming this slightly after 12 p.m. on Saturday, and we haven't had any big announcements yet. Maybe something will come out soon, but I haven't seen that. Of course, if it is, I'll tack that on to the next episode, but the next two episodes of the Braxcast are going to be less topical because I'm traveling and I've got to record them beforehand. But if there's anything that comes out of Megacon that I'm not covering here because I haven't seen it yet, it'll be on the 52nd episode of the Braxcast. But at Megacon, it's exciting time for the fans. You get to meet with the creatives. You get to get stuff signed. Very exciting time. But we haven't had we haven't had an announcement coming out of Megacon to get everybody who's not attending Megacon as hyped up. At least at the time that I'm filming this. But we do have some interesting stuff that was released throughout the week, or at least one thing. It wasn't necessarily anything new. It was a supercut, of all of Rippaverse Studios' animated work. So this is about a little over 5-minute video, a little introduction from Gothics on Rippaverse Studios, and then basically every single Rippaverse Studios project being a bunch of trailers for their comic book, starting with the Isom number 2 animated trailer, then going into the Alpha Core 1 animated trailer, and then we had Horseman, Rippaverse Trinity animated trailer. And then there might be one or two things that I'm missing, but I believe I have just about everything. Oh yeah, there was also a very short trailer for Yaira number 1 that was animated that came out after the pretty epic live action animated trailer. So that video is live on the Rippaverse's social media, YouTube, Twitter. It's all over the place. Recommend watching that. It's a great supercut. Shows all of the Rippaverse Studios projects that they've released publicly so far. And it is really nice to see that improvement from Isom 2's animated trailer to the way that they have currently at the end. I think Horseman, that animated trailer and that pilot was the best work out of Rippaverse Studios. Definitely want to have at least the pilot, at least that full first episode, but having a whole season of stuff animated like that, and of course Dean Kane offering his acting talents and voicing Horseman would be a very cool thing to see. So that's definitely something that I want. And if you like what Rippaverse Studios is doing, or what the Rippaverse does in general, then become a member at the Rippaverse members, little as $5 a month, and we get to, I believe it's 5,000 members, we get that first episode of Horseman, and then 10,000 they commit to that first full season. And of course, if they have that good paying customer base, then Rippaverse Studios is going to have the coffers full to do a whole bunch of other stuff, and I imagine that's what's going to come next. But this is, of course, going to be a bit of a shorter episode of the Braxcast because we don't have too many announcements, again, coming out of Megacon. Haven't had anything yet as the time I'm filming this, but I will give you some updates on the numbers. Great War of Separation. Of course, the last episode of the Braxcast, I interviewed Chuck Dixon, the writer of Great War of Separation, as a very interesting one. So I suggest you guys check that out. Definitely we went over the preview pages that are public. He gives his take on them as the writer. Very interesting stuff. This is going to be definitely like a situation where Robert E. Lee has to choose between loyalty to the Union or loyalty to his homeland. And that's what Brian Slaughter has to do with Texas or the greater United States. Of course, he chooses Texas and becomes the hero of Texas, and people are very interested in finding out his story. We've so far, as the time I'm recording this, 5,273 books sold, $127,719 in total revenue. Of course, these collections, they're getting much smaller than the campaigns. The books are getting cheaper, so the gross dollar amounts are definitely going to go down. And of course, not everything's going to be this big indie event as launching a new comic book company and offering the idea of a universe to readers. While the Great War Separation is definitely going to be foundational in building out the universe aspect of the Rippaverse, I imagine a lot of people who came into the Rippaverse are just Iceman fans or people who wanted to give Eric's comic book a shot, and not everyone's going to gravitate towards every single thing. And of course, we have to remember that comic books are a very niche branch of entertainment. It's not like video games or movies. It's definitely much more of a niche. Manga's broken out of that a little bit, but in comparison to the people going to, well, not going necessarily going to movies, but people who are consuming, streaming services or just television in general, and especially video games. So video games has overtaken movies in terms of revenue and the amount of people it engages. Those are really the big dogs in entertainment. Comics are much smaller, but there's definitely is a lot of success. There's a sustained audience that has interest in the Rippaverse, and I'm definitely all here for it. But I definitely think the better example of the popularity of the Rippaverse is Yaira number 2. So Yaira number 2, 8,293 books sold, 284,000 in total revenue. So the IRA number 1 was the quickest campaign to hit that $1 million mark. Did it in just under, or basically 24 hours and like a couple of minutes. And Yaira number 2, again, this is a 56-page book, the same length as the first issue of Great War Separation, around that same price, for the base book being $14. So a lot of people just buy the book and nothing else. And then they buy the book, nothing else. And that's where I'd say a bulk of the revenue comes is from those customers. So if those customers are paying significantly less, then you're going to see significantly less revenue. And of course, the Yaira number 1 campaign had the statue at the end of it. It had the Dokumon cards. It had more merchandise options. I've said this before, I'll say this again. The collections are definitely a lot leaner on the merchandise options. It allows them to release stuff more quickly. And of course, in comparison to Yaira number 2, the Great War Separation, Yaira number 2 has those CGC signature copies. Great War Separation doesn't. And I definitely think the trending away from doing CGC copies, as cool as they are, as much as I love them, as much as I love to collect them, is definitely something they're going to have to be more selective about in the future, because that's the thing that holds up a lot of the fulfillment. That's what's holding up Blood Roof's fulfillment. That's what held up Achromatic Chronicles fulfillment, which is fulfilling now. I'm getting those books personally on Sunday. I will be reviewing them shortly, when I get them. So there's definitely a lot of, I would say, excitement. There definitely is a lot of, not much of a need for the signature series as there was in the establishment stage of the Rippaverse, where we had, a bunch of, number 1s coming out for these series. It's not nearly as important for like Alpha Core number 2 to have its own CGC. Of course, Great War Separation 1 having it would have been interesting, but it's not the biggest breaking story in the Rippaverse. Lore-wise is important, but it's not necessarily something that is as collectible as the foundational books of the Rippaverse. And of course, it's, like I said, holding up fulfillment. And when you have a release schedule that's going to be seemingly monthly, where you're going to have, every single month a new collection announced, or at least it's going to be one per month. If nothing gets announced for the month of February, we'd still be at that one per month, because we had 2 collections announced in the month of January, that being Yaira number 2 and Great War Separation. Extremely exciting, but you can only have that if you've got quick turnaround on the product, and that is not going to happen as quickly if you have to wait for the signature series to get signed and then graded and then sent back to you and then send them out. That was a big problem with Yaira number 1, is that they had such a long turnaround for those signature series copies, and they didn't want to ever again have to ship, the product out in 2 ways. They want to wait for everything, and waiting for those copies it holds up fulfillment on everything else, which is frustrating on the customer and business side. Because they've got to spend more time holding on to the product, and people have got to spend more time waiting to get what they paid for fulfilled. But that is really all I have for you guys today. A pretty light episode of the Braxcast. I was expecting something big, like Item Free getting announced out of Megacon. That could have happened just after the time I filmed this. Of course, anything that comes out of Megacon that I'm not covering on this episode of the Braxcast, I will tack on to the next episode. So be tuned for that. But other than anything coming out of Megacon, there's not going to be anything topical that I will be covering in the next 2 episodes, as I will be traveling, so I won't be able to film them when I usually do film them. But you'll still get episodes of the Braxcast on that Saturday weekly release schedule that you guys have been used to. So hopefully you guys enjoy this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoy everything else I do with the Braxcast and Velvet Room Publishing. But for now, Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.